Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course.
So tell me about yourself. What is it that you exactly do?
So right now I'm working at IBM. So I went to the University of Virginia, majored in computer science and cognitive science. And right now at IBM, I'm hired as a cognitive consultant, which is just like a fancy title for a consultant who generally works with a lot of cognitive things, like machine learning, AI, that sort of things.
So what inspired you to really get into STEM?
So I actually, my mom is a huge nerd, and I grew up watching a lot of like science fiction, like Star Trek, Stargate with her growing up. I actually wrote in 3rd grade when we were assigned to write a short fiction piece. I wrote like a parody of Star Trek. So I've been sort of exposed to like science and technology from a young age. My mom was also a computer scientist, so yeah. So I sort of just like grew up in that world.
That's
Yeah.
really nice.
That's nice.
So what do you think has been your biggest accomplishment thus far?
I wouldn't say that I've done anything really, really groundbreaking, but I've had the opportunity to work on a lot of really cool projects at school. One of the projects that I think was really cool was basically there's this theory that some famous author, I don't remember his name, came up with, that you can plot a novel. You can plot a novel's plot. You can graph a novel's plot on a chart, and different types of plots have different shapes. So I basically did this similar type of graphing of plots in movies. I used facial recognition, so AI that analyzes the emotion on your face, and then marked it as like sad or happy or excited or scared, and use that over the frames of a bunch of movies, and was successfully able to like graph a line chart basically of the plot of that movie, and you can tell like when the climax is and like when this dramatic thing happens in the movie, because it's like you can see it in their faces, and I thought that was really cool. Another cool thing that I've done is in my research lab, we work in a bird research lab, so we study auditory cognition, and it was like a pretty small thing, but we needed little devices to support some food trays things to feed the birds, to like train them to do things. And the way that they were being held up was like not very strong and like not good for the customized cages that we needed. So I designed, prototyped, and finalized a design for like these things that would hold the food trays. And I'm like not a maker or anything. I'm not a mechanical engineer, so I think it's really cool that like I was able to take this, like come up with this idea, and sort of learn to go through the steps of like prototyping and designing and like learning how to use 3D modeling software and come out with a finished product that was actually useful for something.
That's really impressive.
That was really cool.
So on the same kind of track, what do you think has been your biggest challenge that you've had to face so far?
Something that I guess I should have expected that was kind of difficult was going into this consulting role at IBM, because I'm essentially trained as like a scientist and a software engineer or a computer scientist. So I'm in a lot of academic spaces. So going into consulting and having to learn all these like new business terms and interact with clients and like figure out the values that people have in business, which are very different from academia, has been really difficult. But I think it's good because it's like expanding my horizons as to what I know and makes me a more well-rounded person. Yeah.
That's really good. So have you ever seen gender disparity in your field? And if so, how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, it's interesting. UVA actually has a pretty good computer science gender balance. It's like about 50-50, but there is a club. They basically participate in competitions as to like who can solve this problem the quickest and most efficiently. It's called ICPC. And when I went to the interest meeting, it was like 90% dudes. And I didn't end up joining. I went with one of my female friends, and it was like cool and fine, but I didn't end up joining. looking back, I'm not really sure whether it's because like I thought, oh, this club isn't for me, or if like the fact that it was mostly dudes contributed to that choice. Probably if it had been like mostly girls in the room, it would have been really cool for me to do ICPC because it looked like a really good experience. You learn a lot about using algorithms to their fullest extent and like become a really good computer scientist. But hopefully it'll change. We'll see.
That's good.
Yeah.
So on a completely different track, what are some hobbies of yours? What do you like to do when you're not at IBM?
I got into rock climbing a couple of years ago, and that's been really, really fun. At college, I joined an outdoors at UVA club that taught me how to rock climb outdoors, and that's been really fun. There are actually a lot of computer scientists who rock climb because it's very like problem oriented and puzzle based. I've also been into embroidery lately. Some other like, I've recently been learning how to play the ukulele, which is cool.
That's really nice.
It's really nice being in work and not having homework because you can pick up all the different hobbies.
Yeah. That's good. So what advice would you give to younger girls out there who are trying to get into STEM or AI and machine learning or anything like that?
I think that I've had success in like at least mentally because I've been lucky to be surrounded by so many really, really smart women who are like very dominant in their field and basically like have them as role models as successful, intelligent women in STEM. So my mom's a computer scientist. My aunt is like a really successful pediatrician. My aunt has a physics PhD. It's pretty cool. So if you can surround yourself by powerful women in STEM, I think that was my key. And just ignore the imposter syndrome as much as possible. If you don't think that something is right for you, really be introspective about that. Why don't you think it's right for you? Is it because you don't see yourself in this role in society, or is it because of some other reason? And just be persistent. Yep.
Thank you so much. That was
Thank
really
you.
good.